It's Canadian.
It's banned.
I'd like to call this meeting of council to order. First up, adoption of the agenda. Recommendation the council adopts the October 22nd, 2018 regular meeting agenda as presented. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Ross, Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. To the minutes, recommendations council adopts the October 9, 2018 special Agoin camera meeting minutes as presented. Mover, please? Councillor Ross. Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Recommendation council adopts the October 9, 2018 regular meeting minutes as presented. And please, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Tripp. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. All right, moving on to the written reports of council. Recommendations council, all written reports of council submitted to the October 22nd, 2018 regular meeting be received. Move, please. Councillor Butler, Councillor Tripp. Councillor Ross.
Thank you. I didn't send in a written report, but I did attend a couple of, I attended an RDKB meeting, and I have attended a couple of policy meetings. Whoops, better turn this on. There we go, rookie. And what we've decided at the policy level is that we need a liaison, a policy liaison between those of us who are working at the policy level in emergency response and flood recovery and Victoria. And as we've discussed numerous times, it seems that the sticky point or lack of information is coming from Victoria. We've ticked all the boxes and they just keep making more boxes. We jump through the loops, keep offering information, but we're not hearing back. So it was decided that we need to send a delegation to Victoria. So it'll be a subcommittee of the policy committee, and we are talking about that now. We've had a discussion, we've had some communication with John Horgan. He knows that we're planning on coming, that we're gonna get key people in a room, we're gonna spread out on the table all of the everything that we've submitted. We are going to start talking about an actual strategy on how we're going to work, and then find out where are the sticky points, what do we have to do, what's the holdup on their end, with a full understanding that we need a disaster response strategy that will work around the province. And I think on some levels that might be the issue there. It's just so overwhelming, and it appears that they might be even working in silos. I've also suggested that George Hyman be invited to attend because he is a minister for the environment and climate change strategy. And I think it's important because we don't want to, what we're hearing globally and certainly across Canada is constantly local governments, provincial governments, federal governments having to respond is just not workable. They need a, there's never a one size fits all, but they need a comprehensive strategy. So this is something that we're actually going to be working on a bit more this week and moving ahead and making, setting up those meetings, and they could happen as soon as the end of October. One of the other things that was discussed at the RDKB was talking about emergency preparedness. And there was a concern about losing staff to EOC when we have an emergency. We found it 2 years ago when we had the fires, and we found it this year when we had the floods. And so what happens is, during a time of crisis, our key staff gets taken away. Therefore, projects aren't developed, projects aren't carried out, and the staff that are left behind are simply burned out. So that loss of staff, that's something that we need to talk about moving forward as well. So there's talking about consolidating an EOC strategy for the entire region. Where the equipment is going to be, it was discussed that possibly it will be in Midway, set up in Midway, which is very central, so the EOC may end up in Midway. And if we do pull staff, that the burden is not going to fall upon a single jurisdiction. Like the majority of the burden fell upon the city of Grand Forks. And so we need to spread that out more evenly throughout the region. So that was a key piece of the discussion. It was the shortest meeting that the RDKB had ever had, so that was sort of nice, but a long way to drive to trail for a very short meeting. Yeah, so that's about all I have to talk about, but I think it's just being clear is we need a champion for Grand Forks. We have incredible work being done, it's continuing to be done, but we need a champion in Victoria who will actually advocate on our behalf. And that's our next step as a policy group.
Councillor Bylaw.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. 2 questions on that. Originally, we had a head for each pillar for infrastructure, for unmet needs, for all those pillars, and we met with a lot of people that were coming to Grand Forks from the provincial government that were also focused on those individual sectors, and we were told that there was a person in Victoria at the government level that was connecting with our head for each pillar, and that's how the communication was supposed to work. So I'm just wondering if you guys discussed that at all. Is that what wasn't happening? And okay, I'll answer that first and then I'll ask you the second question.
There are several people in Victoria who we are communicating with. I'm not personally communicating with, but I know Graham is and Rolly is, and I've had a little bit of communication, but we need a single person because everybody seems to be working in a silo. And what we need is somebody who can get everybody in their room. We need we need an advocate, a specific advocate. I would have thought it would have been our MLA, and maybe we do need to activate her a little bit more, but we do have champions on all the different pillars. But what we need is communication. We need people. We've applied for the funding. We continue to do that on a provincial level. We've been invited to apply for funding at the federal level. And Dick Canning, our MP, is our advocate in Ottawa. He's been here so many times. Even when he's driving through, he'll stop and he'll meet with Graham and Rolly and myself and say, what's going on? What do I need to do? Who do I need? And he's having meetings in Ottawa on our behalf. But we don't have that single person in Ottawa who's doing that checkup. It always has to come from us to touch base there. We need somebody from there who can keep touching base with us. Like that, we need that conduit. I meant Victoria.
So I'm not sure if you can answer this one or maybe to Graham, but we did receive funding from the provincial government for winter housing about 3 weeks ago now, and I've been kind of wondering where that's at because council did talk about it 2 weeks ago, and we were hoping to have had something here by now, so I'm just wondering where it's at.
To the Mayor. Yeah, so the winter housing funding was approved for a combination of whatever was required for modular units and hotels and motels. The number of households that require winter housing has gone down significantly as families have found alternatives, have found places to rent, in some cases have winterized their RVs or gone south. They've made those decisions. So the procurement group within the team has talked again with all the hotels and motels, and many have stepped up and provided units that will have kitchenettes or suitable alternatives. And the strategy that was discussed was keeping as much of the funding in the community as possible through working with those tourist commercial, Airbnb and various other kinds of local supports, and then transitioning people into rental accommodations as they're able to come online. So the modulars, we have about half of what we anticipated in terms of needs when we put the funding request in. And so the modulars were seen to be an exceptional expense compared to the local options. And we do have some basically some contingency and some of the units available for bringing in quickly if we really need to, if other things are falling apart. But the team is pretty comfortable with the approach of prioritizing the hotels and motels.
So then all the funding that we're getting is able to be allocated to the hotels and motels, and at this point everyone is now housed?
That's the second part. It takes a little while to get the contracts in place. The way that they're being handled is through contracts at a site level, and then basically costed out monthly, that kind of thing. So we're just finishing the contract piece, and our hope is to have people starting to be transitioned within the week.
So I have 2 questions, but regarding this housing one, I'm just wondering, has everybody that needs housing been approached regarding living in a motel for the winter with their families? Just wondering how that's gonna go over. That's my first question.
So the outreach and case management work has worked with each individual family to understand their needs. And many of the households that have children are either finding other alternatives or I don't believe in any case that there's going to be an inadequate situation, but our case management team has been working on that very diligently.
Okay, and the other part was regarding our rep in Victoria. Has the recovery team approached our MLA, Linda Larson, and asked her to sit in on any of these recovery meetings and to lobby on our behalf at the provincial level?
That's not explicitly the recovery management role in reaching out on the political level, but perhaps our representatives could discuss it.
We discussed that, and yes, she has. And I think it would have been obvious anyway. I mean, she's has one of the largest cities in her constituency going through a major catastrophe. We've assumed that she would do that work for us, and we continue to CC her and include her in all the dialogue. But we're not hearing back from her. So we have actually even discussed even last week when we had our last policy meeting, that we need to ask her specifically to advocate for us and to follow up. But it seemed a little, I had no idea that we actually had to ask her to do that for us. And when we go to Ottawa, I'm sorry, I have Ottawa on my brain, Victoria, that we will be asking her to join us in those meetings. But she's completely up to date on everything that we've done.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, moving on to item 6B, which is a discussion or a brief comment and remarks by myself on the 2018 BC 55 Plus Games. The 55 Plus Games were established in 1987 as the BC Seniors Games. The event moves to a different host city year to year, with Cranbrook and Kimberley jointly hosting this year's event. The games feature 23 different sports with over 2,000 athlete participants and nearly another 1,000 volunteers supporting the events. Grand Forks had 12 athletes participating in 5 different sport disciplines, some individual and some team. I would like to recognize these citizens who represented Grand Forks on a provincial stage last month. In individual sports, we had Larry Podmaroff in archery for 2 gold medals, Nipper Kettle for cycling, 1 gold and 2 silver medals, Myrna Bolts, equestrian, 1 gold, 1 silver medal, Wendy Price, equestrian, 1 gold, 1 silver, Joanne Rook, equestrian, 1 bronze, Richard Mathers for swimming, 5 gold, 1 silver, Shane Konar, swimming, 1 bronze, Liz Huxter, swimming, 1 gold, 2 silver, Yvonne Konar for swimming, 3 silver, 1 bronze, Jim Talbot for darts, and Giselle Leclerc for golf. And in team sports, we had Ken Cambietz for men's hockey, 1 bronze, Richard Mathers and Shane Konar for men's team swimming, 1 bronze, Shane and Yvonne Konar for mixed team swimming, 1 bronze, Yvonne Konar for women's team swimming, 1 gold. So I'd just like to say congratulations to all of the participants from Grand Forks who combined to earn 12 gold, 10 silver, and 6 bronze medals at these games. Very impressive. Okay. All right, so now we'll move on to 7A, that's the verbal report from the RDKB rep, which would be myself. My alternate attended that meeting, which she had already mentioned her report, and she presented it. So all those in favor of receipt, please. I'm a mover, please. Councillor Tripp, Councillor Hammond. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. All right, moving on to 8A, recommendations from staff for decision. First one, 8A, Revitalization Tax Exemption Bylaw. Recommendation is that council instructs staff to proceed with public engagement and council workshops for a potential revitalization tax exemption program. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Crog, Councillor Hammond. All those in favor? Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Hammond. Turn mine off, there you go.
Yeah, so this revitalization tax exemption, I'm confused at the lengthy process with all the consultation and council discussion regarding, it just seems like it's a revitalization. So like the samples that I had looked at and provided a copy of Preston's revitalization tax bylaw, it seems pretty specific. Like it's like we have a form and character. It's not creating a new one, because I see when I go through here that there was it talks about new development as well. And I'm just wondering if that's the case, because then it's not a revitalization tax exemption if it's going to be, yeah, let's see here. Like it just seems pretty specific that it's to revitalize an existing property. So it just seems to be an awfully complicated process.
New commercial.
New commercial construction, but that's not revitalization.
Well, it would be if it was no beer lot.
If it's a bare lot,
Yeah.
that they put new construction,
Yeah.
I
They
suppose.
revitalized the empty lot.
So, yeah, can I get just an explanation?
So your worship, I know our CFO did a lot of work on this, and I believe that our corporate officer could explain a little bit about kind of the process that's should be kind of followed. There's more than just a simple piece here, so.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so in consultation with the CFO, there is some things that need to be considered, and our planning and engineering department hasn't had a chance yet to look into this either. The town of Oliver, I believe it was, just used the revitalization tax exemption to attract a new hotel chain into town that wasn't there before. It's more than just looking at one area of town. It's meant to look at an overall aspect. It does require some sort of community consultation, like an open house or town hall meetings where you get the ideas from the community of what's missing, what's needed. There's challenges too of how effective that program can be. There needs to be some sort of engagement with a little bit more of the experts than we are of where there's benefits or so, but for that, the need for the consultation with council to see what council wants and what the public wants, and then combining this is the right approach. Yes, it's a lengthy process, but to make the program work for itself and for this community, that's what's recommended at this point.
Councillor Hammond.
So with this bylaw, with the process that it's going through, would it be ready before, like we've missed the next tax cycle, so it would catch on for 2020, right, 2020. So will it be ready in time for that?
Your worship, I believe so. I think that this is the authorization for us to go ahead with those public consultations. And so then that'll get the ball rolling, so to speak, and so then the plan would be is to make sure that it's in place before the next one.
Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, I know that on the Creston example, on that bylaw that I presented, they were very pleased. It was something new that they had come up with, and they were extremely pleased with the positive results they had, that the amount of businesses and landlords that took advantage of that and started revitalizing their buildings and cleaning them up. So if you want to talk to a community that's had some success, you might want to talk to Preston.
So all those in favor? So carried. All right, 8B. Subject matter, consideration for approval of temporary use permit application. Recommendation, the council grants a temporary use permit for a religious center, church, on land zoned CC Core Commercial located at 7255 Riverside Drive, legally described as Lot A, District Lot 108, SDYD, Plan KAP 82116, PID 026838575. Move it, please, Councillor Crog. Councillor Tripp. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to our staff. Temporary use permits, how many times can they be renewed before they have to be, property has to be purchased or reverted to original use?
Sure, I can speak to that. So a temporary use permit may be renewed one time without having to go back through the public process for a new permit. And so basically it's indefinitely as long as you actually have to go back through the public notification and council resolution for the new process. You know, it's understood that it's not in compliance with the zoning bylaw except through that temporary use. You know, recognizing of course that there are quite a few empty storefronts in the area, and we're neighbors to that now in the flood recovery unit. I think that unit was empty for a few years before going, so it's you know, as long as it's the will of the neighborhood and of council to continue it, it has to go through the new process.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. All right, 8C. Recommendation is council approves $200,000 to be used for the DMAF grant application preparation and direct staff to include it in the 5-year financial plan bylaw amendment. Move it, please, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Butler. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. All right. 9A. Recommendation is council discusses the proposed increase for the Aquatic Center service and defers the item to the Committee of the Whole meeting on December 10, 2018 for discussion with RDKB representatives. Move it, please, Councillor Ross. Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. All right, moving on. There's no information items. We have no late items, so we're going to move on to question period from the public and the media. Again, please stay on subject matter.
Oh, I've got nothing.
I guess I have nothing either, but I'd like to say to those who are leaving us, thank you for putting in all this time and taking my gut. I know it hasn't been easy, but thank you. We love you, Les.
Yeah, I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you for those that voted for me, and I've had a great 4 years. It's been a wonderful experience. I feel privileged to be able to have contributed to the community in this capacity. We came in, it was challenging when we came in with the water meters, and we're going out with the flood and the Second Street project, so it's been a bit of a trying 4 years, but I'm thankful for the opportunity, and I'm not going to be going anywhere. I'm still going to be working around in the community, so people are going to still see me.
Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Konrad. I wasn't going to say anything, but I think what I'd like to say is that just as Councillor Hammond has also stated, it's just been an incredible learning experience, and I, going through this process, have really felt that every young person in school should go through a civics program, because you just learn so much about your community and how things are run, and where money's being spent, and what the important things are to look to invest in when you're when you're growing up in a community, and even what to look for in a community when you're going to be settling in one. So I want to thank everyone who voted for me so that I could come on during the by-election and go through the last 2.5 years, and also to congrats to those who are continuing on, and to the other councillors here who have really worked hard. I know that some people on social media have said that some of us are deadwood or made other disparaging comments. And, you know, I think that we need to realize that people who sit on these chairs, in these chairs, work extremely hard for very little pay and pretty much zero thanks. And they do it because they love the community and they bring the very best that they have to the table. So thank you and best of luck to everybody.
I'd like to take a brief moment, again, myself, to thank everyone in this community for having allowed me to run as mayor and oversee this community for the 4 years. It was a great experience, very enjoyable, trying at times, as Councillor Tripp had mentioned. At the best of times, I still believe that we did our best, we worked hard, and we served the community to our best ability under every circumstance that arose. And I wish everybody and the new elected officials great success, and hopefully their endeavors come to be what they want them to be. And again, thank you, everyone in the community. All right,
Motion.
may I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Ross? Second. Councillor Butler. All those in favor? This meeting is adjourned, and thank you, everyone.